This was something that happened at 10:30 last night. Neighbors here at the Cheverly apartments, the Cheverly Station apartments, heard arguing and then two sets of three gunshots. Boom, 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 boom.
This is Tariq Jones, a 26-year-old mother of three whose life was tragically taken after making an incredibly difficult decision. Tariq, filled with hope, had just bailed out her partner, Kevin Reynolds, by paying a $20,000 bail in an attempt to bring him home moments after he tried to take her life. 6 days later, that very decision would cost her her life, along with her sisters, Jaleesa Harris. On March 7, 2016, police would respond to a multiple shooting scene in an apartment in the Cheverly Station complex. However, nothing prepared them for the gruesome scene awaiting them. Investigators found the lifeless bodies of Tariq and her sister under a sink. Just moments prior, Tariq had been in the police station pleading for the release of a man that had made the decision to end her life. Little did she know she would be the one to give him the chance to fulfill his desire. But before we get to that terrifying moment that took the lives of both sisters, let me take you back to where this seemingly perfect love story between Tariq and Kevin began. Because the most dangerous relationships are the ones that look absolutely flawless from the outside.
Everyone has their problems, but if you're asking if anyone knew that, something would come to this, no. It was the last of what anybody would have thought. I thought it was a lie when I got the phone call.
30-year-old Tariq Jones was a woman whose resilience defined her journey. Born on May 21, 1989 in Prince George's County, Maryland, a community often marked by challenges and safety concerns, Tariq grew up determined not to let her environment dictate her future. Raised by her mother, Twanda Jones Reed, she was known for her strength and determination. Her father, Terry Lee Walls, passed away before she could achieve many of her dreams, but his influence remained. He inspired her to pursue stability and a better life, a mission she carried forward with unwavering devotion to her children. Education was central to her path. After graduating from Huntington High School in 2007, she enrolled at Forest College in Hyattsville, Maryland, with aspirations of becoming a dental assistant. Her ambitions were never just about herself. She wanted to create a foundation of love, stability, and opportunity for her children, a chance at the kind of role model she longed for after her father's passing. Tariq became a mother to two daughters, and though her relationships with their fathers did not provide the stability she hoped for, she never abandoned her dream of building a loving family.
She wanted to make something out of herself, 27 with 3 children or not. She still wanted to come out of poverty. She wanted to be the best mother that she could be. It's just sad because she doesn't get that chance.
That dream seemed within reach when she met Kevin Tyrese Reynolds in District Heights, Maryland. At first, Kevin appeared to be everything she wanted, supportive, attentive, and quickly integrated into her family life. Friends and relatives saw him as the man of the house, and for a time, Tariq believed she had found the partner she had been searching for. But appearances can be deceiving. As their relationship deepened, Tariq became pregnant with Kevin's child, and the pressures of family life began to expose cracks in their bond. Arguments grew frequent, sometimes loud enough to draw the attention of neighbors who typically avoided involvement in personal disputes. What began as small disagreements escalated into toxic patterns, leaving Tariq caught between her hopes for a stable family and the reality of growing volatility. The couple eventually established a routine for co-parenting. Kevin would pick her up and drop her off on specific days. Yet beneath this arrangement, tension simmered. On one of those seemingly ordinary days, a minor misunderstanding spiraled into a confrontation that would change everything. Kevin Reynolds was no stranger to violence. On one of their routine exchanges in February, it would turn violent in February. Kevin physically attacked Tariq in front of their daughter, leaving a lasting impact on the family. That particular day, at around 6 p.m., Kevin had arrived as he usually did, pulling his car into place so that Tariq could collect their daughter from the front seat, On the surface, it seemed like another routine exchange, but the day was more than ordinary. As Tariq leaned in to lift her child, the tension that had been simmering between them erupted. Kevin suddenly lunged, seizing her with brutal force and slamming her to the ground. The attack was relentless. He picked her up, threw her down again, and continued as though determined to break her spirit entirely. Neighbors, accustomed to keeping their distance from domestic disputes, could hear the chaos but hesitated to intervene. Despite the violence, Tariq fought back. Summoning every ounce of strength, she managed to stand and flee toward the safety of a neighbor's porch. For a moment, it seemed she had escaped the worst, but in reality, the nightmare was only beginning. On the porch, shaken and desperate, she tried to call the authorities, her hands trembling as she dialed. Kevin, refusing to relent, chased her down, knocking the phone from her grasp and striking her again. Her daughter's cries pierced the air as Tariq shouted for help, the scene spiraling into panic. By sheer fortune, she found a hiding spot where Kevin couldn't immediately reach her. With another phone, she frantically dialed 911, praying the dispatcher would answer quickly. The call connected, but as she tried to give her location, Kevin's voice thundered in the background, screaming, yelling, and closing in. When officers finally arrived on the scene, Tariq Jones shared details that revealed just how dangerous the situation had become. She explained that during the exchange earlier that evening, she had been finishing a phone call as Kevin asked her to collect their daughter from the front seat. Kevin, already suspicious and volatile, assumed she was speaking with the father of her other child. Fueled by jealousy and rage, he lashed out, attacking her without hesitation. But what truly alarmed the police was what Tariq revealed next. She recounted a chilling incident from not long before. During a similar confrontation, Kevin had rushed to his truck, retrieved his shotgun, and used it to threaten and assault her. At the time, she had wanted to call the authorities, but Kevin's mother intervened, pressuring her not to report him. Despite the danger, she chose not to press charges. This was a decision that would later come to haunt her. That silence had allowed his violence to escalate unchecked. Now, with her testimony and the evidence of his latest attack, the officers recognized the severity of the threat. This was no longer a matter of domestic dispute. It was a pattern of escalating violence that posed a grave danger to Tariq and her children. Acting swiftly, they placed Kevin under arrest and charged him with first-degree assault. But what would happen just days later would shock anyone who heard it. Just 6 days after Tariq called for Kevin's arrest, she would bail him out. You see, regardless of how much of a threat Kevin had been to her life, he had also been providing financially for her and her 3 children. He had been a great support system when it came to providing, believing she couldn't deal with the bills alone. She made a decision that would come back to send her to her grave. The following morning, Tariq Jones went to the county police department where Kevin was being held and told them she no longer feared for her life. She requested that Kevin be released. A court date was quickly scheduled to review his case. Initially, it appeared that Kevin would remain behind bars as no bond had been set, but in the courtroom, the situation took an unexpected turn. The defendant petitioned for a bond, asking for $5,000 with a 10% option, meaning only $500 would be required to secure his release. This request complicated matters. What seemed like a straightforward detention suddenly became tangled in legal maneuvering and emotional conflict. Tariq, torn between lingering fear and her desire to believe in Kevin's promises, realized the weight of her actions. By advocating for his release, she was opening the door to risks she hadn't fully considered. But as the hearing unfolded, more troubling details began to surface. Kevin's criminal record was deeper than Tariq had known, revealing a history of offenses that painted him as far more dangerous than she had imagined. As the court reviewed Kevin's history, the extent of his offenses became clear. His record included destruction of property, first-degree assault, and a prior weapons conviction. These were not minor infractions. They painted a picture of a man with a dangerous pattern of violence. Because of this, the judge was unconvinced that a modest bond of $5,000 was not appropriate, even though some voices in the courtroom advocated for it. The weight of Kevin's past actions, combined with the severity of the recent attack, raised serious concerns about what might happen if he were released too easily. For Tariq, the realization was sobering. What had begun as her personal struggle with an abusive partner was now recognized as a broader threat. Kevin was no longer seen as just a danger to her, he was viewed as a risk to the community at large. The court's responsibility was not only to consider her feelings, but also the safety of others who could be harmed if his violence continued unchecked. This shift in perspective meant that any bond set would need to reflect the gravity of the situation. It was no longer about leniency or second chances, it was about accountability and protection. The courtroom atmosphere grew tense as the judge prepared to deliver a decision that would determine Kevin's fate.
Reynolds is currently being held in no bond. We're asking that you set a bond, Your Honor, to a $5,000 bond with the 10% option and pretrial release.
I have had occasion to speak to Ms. Jones. She indicates that she is not in fear of him and that she in fact wants him home.
The facts read as a fairly violent episode. And then if I look at his record, destruction, conviction for assault, which is what this case is actually charged as, first-degree assault, another conviction for assault, a weapons conviction as well. He believes he got off on probation 2 days ago.
Ms. Jones disputes some of the allegations in the statement of charges, Your Honor. I believe that a $5,000 bond is appropriate in this matter.
I disagree. For all the reasons I said, for public safety, for the record, for the way the facts read, I'll set a bond. It'll be $20,000.
From the county courthouse recording, it became clear that the judge had weighed Kevin's violent history carefully. In the end, the bond was set at an astonishing $220,000, a figure meant to reflect the seriousness of his offenses and the risk he posed if released. Given Kevin's financial struggles, it seemed impossible that he could raise such an amount on his own. Yet, in a twist few expected, support came from an unlikely source. With Tariq's backing, the bond was eventually secured and Kevin walked free from detention. For Tariq, the moment brought a wave of relief. She believed she had conquered the anxiety of seeing him locked away, convincing herself that his release might restore the family life she had always dreamed of. Overjoyed, she reached out to loved ones, including her stepsister, Jaleesa Walls Harris, who was known for her compassion and loyalty. She often found herself entangled in her sister's struggles, offering support even when the situation with Kevin grew increasingly volatile. Hearing that Kevin had been freed, Jaleesa celebrated with her sister, hopeful that this would mark a new beginning. But that hope was tragically misplaced. What seemed like a victory for Tariq and her family would soon unravel into devastation. The bond that had brought Kevin back into their lives would prove to be the very decision that sealed their fate. On March 7, 2016, just 6 days after being bailed out by Tariq, Kevin Reynolds walked into their apartment in the Cheverly Station complex. Tensions were running high, and yet again, a disagreement ignited. However, this time, it would end in tragedy. In a moment of rage, Kevin drew a gun. Within seconds, he fired at both Tariq Jones and her stepsister, Jaleesa Walls Harris, who had been visiting to offer support, killing them both. The two women collapsed beneath the kitchen table, their lives ending in the very space that had once been a refuge. Neighbors heard arguing followed by gunshots, and they rushed upstairs to discover the lifeless bodies of Tariq and Jaleesa. Tariq's children, innocent and terrified, witnessed the entire horror from just the other room. This was not the first time violence had been a part of their relationship, but this time it had deadly consequences. After the tragic shooting on March 7, 2016, neighbors quickly called 911, reporting gunshots echoing through the quiet apartment complex. Authorities rushed to the scene, and when they arrived, they were met with an unimaginably heartbreaking sight. The two women had been fatally shot in the kitchen of the apartment, their bodies found under the table. The children, still in the next room, were gripped by fear and confusion after witnessing the violence. The trauma of what they had just seen would leave a lasting impact.
This was something that happened at 10:30 last night. Neighbors here at the Chevrolet apartments, the Chevrolet Station apartments, heard arguing and then two sets of three gunshots. Boom, 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 boom. Neighbors ran upstairs and they discovered that two women had been shot and killed. Their names: Tariq Jones, you can see her in her Facebook page, on her Facebook photo, and her sister, Jaleesa Harris. Now, what we have learned is that Tariq Jones was involved in a relationship with Kevin Reynolds, and there was a history of abuse. Reynolds was arrested in the middle of February after he dragged Jones around the parking lot here and then threatened her with a gun. He was locked up. But Jones, actually, according to sources, went to his bond review, said she did not want to move ahead with the charges. His bond was lowered. He was released just 6 days ago.
The police immediately secured the area and began gathering witness statements from the people who lived nearby.
She was saying, "Reed, what have you done to yourself?" And Reed was underneath the table, the other girls on the other side of the table, and they're both slumped and like in a knot.
Among them was a 5-year-old child, a key witness who had heard the commotion and was able to identify Kevin Reynolds as the shooter. The identification would prove pivotal in narrowing down the search for the prime suspect, and it quickly became clear to investigators that Kevin Reynolds was the man responsible. Despite the initial chaos, authorities acted swiftly. They launched a manhunt, notifying nearby jurisdictions and tracking down every possible lead. But the search for Kevin proved to be elusive. They were unable to locate him. Law enforcement had to broaden their search area and remain vigilant in their pursuit of the suspect. As police continued to investigate the crime, they began piecing together Kevin's movements and actions. Surveillance footage from the neighborhood helped paint a clearer picture of his whereabouts leading up to the murders. The police learned that after the shooting, he had fled the scene and was on the run. Tips from locals indicated that he had been seen in a car over 100 miles away from the crime scene. The search for him became more urgent, and the clock was ticking. During their investigation, authorities uncovered disturbing details about Kevin's violent history. His past was marred by multiple instances of domestic violence, including previous arrests and charges for assault and threats. Tariq, despite the abuse, had been hoping for change and had been convinced that if Kevin were released from jail, their lives would improve. This was the tragedy of it. She thought she was giving him a second chance, but that very decision ended up costing her and her sister their lives. Further investigation revealed that after Kevin had been released from jail by Tariq, the couple continued with their frequent arguments, and it was one of those arguments that had brought Tariq's sister to the hope. Unbeknownst to them, that would be the last time both sisters would be alive. The manhunt for Kevin Reynolds intensified. The police received information that he had been spotted in a black car. Officers immediately responded, rushing to the location, but when they arrived, Kevin was nowhere to be found. However, officers noticed the black car parked suspiciously nearby and quickly moved to investigate further. As they approached the vehicle, they made a chilling discovery. Kevin Reynolds' lifeless body was found in the trunk of the car. It appeared that he had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, the same type of weapon he had used to murder Tariq and Jaleesa just days earlier. It was a tragic and final end to a story that no one could have predicted.
Yeah, Leon, and we've got some breaking news for you, confirmed just about a half an hour ago and first reported by ABC7. And that is the suspect in this double murder has been found dead, believed to be the victim of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was found this afternoon in Hanover County, Virginia, not too far, we're told, from Ashland. That is north of Richmond. His name is Kevin Tariq Reynolds, and he had been involved in a relationship with one of the victims of this double murder.
The man who had taken 2 innocent lives was now gone, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and devastation. For the families of Tariq and Jaleesa, justice would never fully be served. The lives of their loved ones were lost forever, and now they were left to pick up the pieces. Kevin Reynolds would never stand trial, and the families would never see him face the consequences of his actions. The aftermath of the discovery was a mixture of relief and sorrow for the community. While there was a sense of closure in knowing that Kevin would never harm anyone again, the pain of losing 2 young women was still fresh. The tragic nature of the crime and the senseless violence that led to their deaths left everyone shaken. It was a sobering reminder of the consequences of domestic violence and the devastating impact it has on families and communities.
Tariq was remembered as a dedicated mother and an ambitious woman, still pursuing her dreams of becoming a dental hygienist. She was known for her kindness, her work ethic, and her deep love for her children. Jaleesa, Tariq's sister, was described by everyone who knew her as a vibrant young woman with a bright future ahead of her. She had been passionate about music and had plans to audition for a performance of Aladdin, hoping to pursue a career as a vocalist. Her life, like her sister's, was cut short far too soon.
My sister was everywhere, all the time. She was very friendly, had so many best friends. And you better know. All she did was sing. Everyone always wanted her to sing. You gonna miss me when I go. She was so young, and I love her so much.
Both of them had so much more to give, and the pain of their loss left a hole in the hearts of those who loved them. The community was left with a series of unanswered questions. How did things escalate so quickly? How did Tariq end up in a situation where she felt it was worth risking her safety to get Kevin Reynolds out of jail? The decision to pay the $20,000 bail for Kevin, a man with a history of violence, turned out to be tragically misguided. The desire to bring him home and restore some normalcy to their lives ultimately led to her and her sister's deaths. This tragedy stands as a chilling reminder of the dangers of domestic violence and the impact it can have on families. Many people around Tariq tried to warn her, but she had hoped for a different outcome. She wanted a life of peace, love, and stability for her children, but in the end, the very man she tried to help ended her life and the life of her sister. This tragedy also sheds light on the often overlooked reality of domestic violence. It is easy to become entangled in a cycle of abuse, and sometimes the victims feel trapped, unable to escape due to emotional, financial, or social pressures. Tariq's decision to bail Kevin out, driven by a combination of love and concern for her family's well-being, ultimately proved to be fatal. The events leading to Tariq and Jaleesa's deaths are a painful reminder that sometimes love isn't enough to overcome abuse. It's important for individuals in abusive situations to realize that no one should have to endure violence, and they deserve the opportunity to live a life free from fear and harm. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.